Put that tray down right now, girl. We don't serve people like you here." Before Maya Williams could even move, Evelyn Grant ripped the tray from her hands and slammed it onto the floor. "You think someone like you deserves to eat here?" The dining hall went dead silent. Maya stood frozen at the front of the line. She was 19, a freshman, and had been at Harrington College for less than 48 hours. Her student ID hung plainly against her hoodie, her name printed, her photo active, her premium meal plan confirmed by student accounts before noon. But Evelyn Grant didn't care about the system. Standing behind the counter in a white apron, her silver name tag reading, "Dining Services Manager," Evelyn pointed a finger toward the back wall. "Move. You are holding up students who actually belong in this line." Maya didn't budge. Her silence only tightened the tension in the room. "I said move," Evelyn repeated, her voice cutting through the quiet hall. "Girls from South Chicago don't walk into Harrington with premium packages unless somebody made a mistake or unless somebody is lying. She's a student here." Grace Miller, Maya's roommate, stepped out of line, her voice sharp. "I saw her confirmation email." Evelyn snapped her eyes toward Grace. "You saw what she wanted you to see. That doesn't make it real. This is Harrington College, not a soup kitchen." Before Grace could argue, Evelyn grabbed Maya's ID between two fingers, reading it like a mugshot. Maya Williams, South Chicago, full scholarship. Of course. Across the room, Caleb Moore dropped his glass at the drink station. His jaw tightened as he marched over. Evelyn ignored him and turned to the register. "Tom, print her dining status right now. Let everyone see what kind of account she brought to my line." Tom Briggs hesitated, his hand hovering over the terminal. "Evelyn, are you sure? Print it." The printer whirred. Evelyn snatched the slip before Tom could even look at it. A satisfied smile crept onto her face as she tapped a bolded line on the paper. "Inactive. Fraud review." The word echoed through the crowd. "Fraud? That's impossible." Grace stepped forward. "That status wasn't there this morning." "And how would you know?" Evelyn shot back. "Because you've done this before," Caleb countered, standing right beside Maya. "Last semester, you marked my account restricted and told me scholarship boys eat after everyone else. That matter was handled, Caleb." "No," Caleb said, staring her down. "It was hidden." Evelyn's face hardened. She held up the slip like a trophy. "This is about fraud. A brand new freshman caught using a compromised premium account. If this student altered her data, local police will be contacted." Maya finally spoke, her voice deadly calm. "Your dining hall?" Evelyn stared at her, caught off guard by the lack of fear. "I'm recording," Grace announced, raising her phone. Around the room, a dozen more phones slipped out of pockets. The crowd was no longer just watching. They were documenting. Evelyn reached for the wall phone, her hand shaking slightly under the glare of the lenses. "Dean Halden? Evelyn Grant in dining. We have another scholarship account problem." Another. The word hung heavily in the air. At the far entrance of the dining hall, the glass doors swung open. A black man in a dark trench coat walked in, carrying a plain folder under his arm. He stopped, his eyes instantly tracking the empty tray on the floor, the phones in the air, and Evelyn holding the slip. Maya's breath caught. "Dad." Victor Williams walked toward the counter. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood beside Maya, radiating a quiet, suffocating pressure that made the surrounding students back away. "What happened?" he asked. Evelyn puffed her chest out. "Parents are not allowed to interfere with dining investigations." Victor didn't blink. "I asked what happened." "She attempted to use a meal plan under fraud review," Evelyn said, tossing the paper down. "We are handling it." Victor looked at Maya. "Did you?" "No, Dad." He nodded once. "I know." He turned his gaze back to Evelyn, his voice dropping an octave. "When was the status changed?" "That is internal information." Victor didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He just looked at the manager with a cold certainty that made her grip the counter. "Get Dean Halden," Victor said. "He's already on his way." Evelyn snapped. Good. No one in that room knew who Victor Williams was. But as they watched him stand by his daughter, the entire energy of the cafeteria shifted. The trap had been sprung. But for the first time, Evelyn Grant looked like the one caught in it. Dean Robert Halden arrived exactly 3 minutes later. He possessed the practiced calm of a man who spent years making institutional scandals disappear before they ever reached a boardroom. He didn't look at the empty tray on the floor. He didn't look at Maya. He looked straight at the flashing smartphone screens. "Everyone, put your devices away," Halden commanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the absolute weight of administrative authority. This is a private student matter. Disobeying an administrative directive is a code of conduct violation. Clear the hall. Now. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Halden's eyes locked onto Grace and Caleb, cold and threatening. Then, he turned to Maya and Victor, his face instantly masking into a polite, corporate smile. "Miss Williams, Mr. Williams," Halden said, gesturing toward the glass exit doors. "My office. Now. We are not doing this in public." "She accused me in public," Maya said, her voice firm despite the adrenaline surging through her. "And we will address that through the proper channels," Halden replied smoothly, already moving. "Follow me." 2 minutes later, the heavy oak doors of the administration wing shut behind them, cutting off the noise of the campus. The conference room was suffocatingly quiet. Dean Halden sat at the head of a polished mahogany table. Evelyn Grant stood tightly beside him. Officer Linda Perez remained by the door, her expression uneasy. Halden opened his leather folder and slid a printed document across the table toward Maya. It wasn't an incident report. It was a pre-drafted, voluntary administrative withdrawal agreement. "What is this?" Maya asked, scanning the text. "It's protection, Miss Williams," Halden said, leaning forward, his tone dropping into a deceptive, paternal warmth. "Mrs. Grant has brought a very serious charge against you. Academic and financial fraud involving a premium residential meal plan. Harrington takes federal and institutional aid fraud exceptionally seriously." "I didn't alter anything," Maya said, staring at the paper. "I have the confirmation email right here. Systems do not spontaneously flag accounts for fraud review without a data mismatch." Evelyn interjected, her arms crossed. "You pocketed a premium card meant for a paying student." Halden raised a hand to silence Evelyn, keeping his eyes locked on Maya. "If we launch a formal investigation, the police will be involved. Your transcripts will be frozen. Your full academic scholarship permanently revoked tonight, and a criminal record will follow you back to South Chicago. You will never step foot on another college campus." The room felt ice cold. Maya looked at the paper. The terms were clear. "Sign here to withdraw immediately due to personal reasons, and the college agrees not to pursue legal action." They were trying to erase her before sunrise. If you feel for Maya in this moment, standing there as they try to erase her future before sunrise, please like this video to show that Maya is not standing alone. And don't forget to comment where you are watching from, because maybe someone near you is also watching Maya's story right now. "You're blackmailing her," Grace's voice echoed in Maya's head, though her roommate was still outside. Maya looked at her father. Her hands wanted to shake, but she forced them flat onto the mahogany table. Victor Williams hadn't spoken since entering the room. He picked up the document with 2 fingers, read it thoroughly, and then slid it back. "Do not sign it, Maya," Victor said quietly. Halden's smile vanished completely. He turned to Victor, his patience wearing thin. "Mr. Williams, I advise you to look at reality. Your daughter is a first-year student from a high-risk demographic. The system says she committed fraud. If she signs this, she goes home with a clean record. If she doesn't, Officer Perez here will have no choice but to escort her off the premises in handcuffs." Officer Perez shifted her weight, looking at Halden with sudden hesitation. "Dean, we haven't run a full IT audit on the server logs yet." "That is an internal matter, officer," Halden cut her off sharply. "We have the printed terminal slip. That is sufficient for probable cause." Victor leaned back in his chair. The plain folder remained unopened under his arm. He looked at Halden, then at Evelyn, evaluating them not as educators, but as small-time crooks caught in a massive trap. "An IT audit," Victor repeated, his voice dangerously low. "Let's talk about that. Because a system doesn't just flag an account at 6:42 a.m. on the first day of orientation unless someone manually adjusted the database parameters. Evelyn's posture stiffened. Her eyes widened slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, Victor said, staring directly into her eyes. And so does the dean. You don't want a public review because you don't want anyone looking into the dining services restricted fund allocations. Halden slammed his hand onto the table. Mr. Williams, that is enough. This meeting is over. Miss Williams, if you do not sign that paper in the next 60 seconds, I am authorizing campus security to detain you for theft of services. The threat hung heavily in the air. Maya looked at the pen in front of her. Then she looked at her father's face, calm, unyielding, and completely unafraid. The fear that had been gripping her stomach suddenly evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp anger. She pushed the pen away. I'm not signing, Maya said, looking Halden dead in the eye. Call the police. Halden's jaw tightened. He turned to the security officer. Officer Perez, detain her. Perez didn't move. She looked from the dean to Victor, sensing the shifting gravity in the room. Before Halden could yell at the officer, Victor pulled a black smartphone from his coat pocket and tapped the screen once. Naomi. Victor spoke into the line, his voice echoing in the silent room. Freeze the endowment routing for Harrington College. All 25 million. And bring the forensic audit team to the administration building. Now. Halden froze, his hand still hovering over the table. Evelyn looked at the phone, then at Halden, confusion turning into a sudden, creeping terror. Who are you calling? Halden stammered, his polished corporate defense shattering in a split second. Victor stood up. He didn't look like a man wearing an old coat anymore. He looked like the billionaire kingmaker he was. You wanted to handle this through the proper channels, Dean Halden, Victor said, looking down at him. My channels just arrived. The hallway to the administration wing was lined with framed photographs of past presidents of Harrington College. Maya noticed them without really looking. White men in dark suits, serious faces, donor names beneath polished brass plates. Everyone in those frames looked like they had been born knowing where to stand. Dean Halden walked ahead of them as if he were leading a routine tour, not escorting a freshman accused of fraud out of a dining hall. Evelyn stayed close to his side, still holding herself like the injured party. Officer Perez walked behind Maya and Victor, quiet, alert, and visibly uncomfortable. Maya said nothing. Victor matched her pace. You all right? Yes. It was not fully true, but it was the only answer she wanted to give in front of them. Dean glanced back. Miss Williams, I know this feels serious, but cooperation now can prevent consequences later. Victor answered for no one but himself. What consequences? Dean slowed slightly. If dining access was altered improperly, we have reporting obligations. Altered by whom? Dean did not answer. Evelyn did. That is exactly what we are trying to determine. Victor looked at her. You already determined it in the cafeteria. I stated what the system showed. You stated what you wanted the room to believe. Evelyn stopped walking. Dean Halden, I will not be spoken to like that by a parent who walked in halfway through an incident. Dean turned, his smile still attached but strained. Mr. Williams, I need everyone to remain civil. Then start with your employee. Officer Perez looked down the hall, but Maya saw her mouth tighten. They reached a glass door marked Administrative Affairs. Dean scanned his badge. The lock clicked. Inside, the hallway became quieter. The carpet changed from gray tile to dark blue, and the air smelled faintly of printer toner and old coffee. Maya saw Grace through the glass behind them, standing at the outer door with her phone still in her hand. Caleb was beside her. Dean had not allowed them in. Grace mouthed, I'm here. Maya gave the smallest nod. Dean noticed and pulled the inner door shut. This will go faster without an audience, he said. Maya looked at him. The audience saw what happened. The audience saw a disruption. They saw her throw my tray on the floor. Evelyn's head snapped toward her. I removed an unauthorized tray from service. Maya turned to Evelyn fully. You threw it on the floor. For the first time, Evelyn did not answer right away. Dean stepped between them without physically blocking anyone. We are not here to litigate tone or cafeteria manners. We are here to establish whether Miss Williams accessed a dining plan she was not authorized to use. Victor said, "You keep saying that like it is already true." Dean opened a conference room door. "Please sit." The room was plain and cold. A long table, 6 chairs, a wall clock, a speakerphone, a laptop already open near the head seat. Beside it sat a thin stack of papers turned face down. Maya saw the papers first. Victor saw them too. Dean placed his folder on the table and sat at the head. Evelyn sat to his right. Officer Perez remained standing near the door until Dean gestured to a chair. "Officer, please stay," he said. "Just as a witness." Perez sat slowly. A witness to what? To the conversation. Maya sat beside Victor. She kept her back straight. She would not give Evelyn the satisfaction of seeing her shrink. Dean folded his hands. "Miss Williams, before we proceed, I want to offer you a chance to explain how your account came to be under fraud review." Maya looked at him. "I don't know how it got there. That is not an explanation. It is the truth." Evelyn leaned forward. "The truth is that premium accounts cost more than standard scholarship dining, and students sometimes attempt to access services outside their award package." Maya's eyes stayed on Dean. "My award package includes premium residential dining," Dean said. "Do you have a printed copy?" "No. It's in my email. We will review official records." "Good," Victor said. "Review them now." Dean tapped his finger once on the table. "Mr. Williams, Harrington's administrative records are not open for parental inspection on demand." Victor did not react. "But they are open enough to accuse her." Dean looked at him longer this time. "You seem very familiar with how to phrase things." "I listened carefully." Evelyn gave a short laugh. "Listening does not change the system." "No," Victor said, "but it helps identify who is hiding behind it." Dean's tone sharpened. "Enough." The room went quiet. Maya heard voices faintly from the outer hallway. Grace, Caleb, maybe more students had followed. Dean heard them too. He stood and closed the conference room door completely. When he returned to his chair, his manner had changed. The public softness was gone. "Miss Williams," he said, "you need to understand where you are. A fraud flag on the first week of enrollment is serious. If this is referred to student conduct, it can affect your scholarship, housing status, and academic standing." Maya stared at him. "Because I tried to eat dinner? Because the system shows irregular access?" Victor asked. "When was the irregular access created?" Dean looked down at the folder. "We are still reviewing that." Officer Perez spoke quietly. "Dean, that seems like the first thing to check." Evelyn looked at her. "Officer, dining has its own procedures." Perez held her gaze. "I'm aware." A knock came at the door. Dean's face tightened. "Come in," he said. Tom Briggs stepped inside, holding another printed sheet. He looked at Evelyn first, then Dean. "You asked for the expanded status report." Evelyn rose quickly. "Give it to me," Victor said. "No." Everyone turned. Victor's voice stayed calm. "If that report concerns my daughter, hand it to the dean, not the employee who accused her." Tom froze. Dean held out his hand. "Give it to me, Tom." Tom did. His fingers shook just enough for Maya to notice. Dean scanned the page. Evelyn watched his face. Maya watched both of them. Something in Dean's expression shifted and disappeared. Victor saw it. "What does it say?" Dean folded the paper. "It confirms the flag." "That is not what I asked." Dean placed the paper inside his folder. "It is not necessary to review every technical detail tonight." Maya spoke before Victor could. "What time was my account changed?" Dean looked at her. She repeated it, still calm. "What time?" Evelyn stood. "This is becoming hostile." "No," Maya said. "It is becoming clear." Officer Perez leaned forward. "Dean, if the account was already confirmed earlier today, the timestamp matters." Dean's mouth tightened. "Officer Perez, I appreciate your input. That means you don't want it." No one expected that from her. Evelyn stared at Perez as if she had betrayed the room. Dean closed the folder. "Miss Williams, I am trying to help you avoid formal escalation." Maya looked at the papers lying face down beside his laptop. "Then why did you have documents ready before we got here?" Dean did not answer fast enough. Victor turned his head slightly toward Maya. There was no smile on his face, but something in his eyes told her she had asked the right question. Dean reached for the stack of papers and turned them over. The top page read, "Voluntary Withdrawal Agreement." Maya read the title once, then again. Evelyn sat back down with visible satisfaction. Dean slid the document across the table, stopping it in front of Maya. "This is one option," he said. "A quiet one." Victor looked at the page but did not touch it. Maya looked from Dean to Evelyn, then to Officer Perez. The accusation in the cafeteria had been only the first step. The real plan had been waiting upstairs the whole time. Dean Halden pushed the document closer with 2 fingers, careful not to seem forceful. "This is not an admission of criminal guilt," he said. "It is a voluntary separation agreement. It allows the college to close the matter without outside involvement." Maya stared at the page. Her name had already been typed into the first paragraph. Maya Denise Williams. Student ID number, Birch Hall. Room 214. Date of enrollment. The blanks had been filled before she walked into the room. She looked up. "You prepared this before hearing me." Dean's face did not change. "We prepare standard documents for several possible outcomes." Victor leaned back slightly. "Several possible outcomes, but only one student's name." Dean did not answer him. He kept his eyes on Maya. "Miss Williams, I want you to understand the seriousness of what happened tonight. Your dining account is under fraud review. That may indicate unauthorized access, false information, or misuse of college benefits." "I did not misuse anything," Maya said. "Then this agreement protects you." Maya looked at the paper again. "By making me leave? By allowing you to withdraw quietly while we avoid escalation." Evelyn sat beside him with both hands folded on the table. "Many young people make bad choices when they get into places they're not prepared for. The smart ones take a way out when it's offered." Maya turned to her. "You threw my tray on the floor. I removed unauthorized dining property from your possession. You accused me before checking anything. The system flagged you." Caleb's words came back to Maya from the dining hall. Same line, same words, same fake restriction. Maya faced Dean again. "Who changed my account?" Dean exhaled through his nose. "We are not here to conduct a technical audit." "Then why are we here?" "To resolve a student conduct issue." "You don't know if there is one." He tapped the document. "This is how we prevent one from becoming permanent." Victor finally reached for the paper. He did not pick it up. He only turned it enough to read the clauses. The room stayed silent as his eyes moved line by line. Officer Perez watched him. Evelyn watched his hands. Dean watched his face. Victor stopped on the second page. "This says she agrees not to discuss the matter with students, faculty, staff, media, legal counsel, or outside agencies," Dean said. "Confidentiality is standard." Victor looked at him. "Legal counsel?" Dean's jaw shifted. "In certain administrative settlements, yes. You are asking a 19-year-old to give up the right to talk to a lawyer. I am offering a path that avoids disciplinary escalation." "No," Victor said. "You are offering silence." Evelyn leaned forward. "You don't understand how this works." Victor turned his eyes to her. "I understand exactly how this works." The words were quiet, but Evelyn stopped talking. Dean folded his hands again. "Mr. Williams, with respect, your daughter is an adult. Harrington College will speak with her directly. You may support her emotionally, but you cannot manage this process for her." Victor nodded once. "Good. Then speak plainly to her." Dean looked back at Maya. "If you do not sign tonight, the matter may be referred to student conduct. Your housing access could be temporarily suspended. Your scholarship status could be reviewed. If the fraud flag proves valid, local authorities may be notified." Officer Perez sat forward. "Dean, has anyone confirmed the flag is valid?" Dean's eyes flicked toward her. "That is under review." "Then why mention local authorities?" "Because I am explaining possible outcomes." Perez looked at Maya. "Possible does not mean proven." Evelyn turned on her. "Officer Perez, this is not a security hearing." "No," Perez said. "But you called security." Dean lifted his hand before Evelyn could respond. "Let's stay focused." Maya touched the edge of the agreement, but did not pull it closer. If I sign this, what happens tonight? Dean softened his voice. You return to Birch Hall with your father. Tomorrow morning, a staff member will assist you with packing. Your scholarship record will indicate voluntary withdrawal. We will not pursue a conduct charge. And everyone thinks I left because I did something wrong. No one outside the necessary offices needs to know. Grace's voice came from the hall, muffled by the door. Maya, don't sign anything. Dean's head snapped toward the door. Evelyn stood halfway up. Victor did not look away from Maya. Dean forced a controlled smile. Your roommate is emotional. She does not understand the consequences. Maya said. She understands what she saw. She saw a dining disruption. Dean replied. She did not see the account records. Then show them. Dean's patience thinned. Miss Williams, you are not in a position to demand access to administrative systems. But I'm in a position to sign away my future based on them. The room went quiet. Victor turned his head toward her. For the first time that night, approval showed plainly in his eyes. Dean slid a pen across the table. Maya, I am going to be very direct. Harrington College is a private institution. We have codes of conduct. We have financial controls. When those controls identify fraud risk, we act. You can cooperate and leave with dignity, or you can fight a process that will be much less forgiving. Maya looked at the pen, then at the agreement, then at Evelyn, who was watching her with open satisfaction. Victor spoke softly. Baby girl. Maya looked at him. He did not touch the pen. He did not touch the paper. He did not decide for her. Never sign a lie just because someone put it on letterhead. Dean's face hardened. That is irresponsible advice. Victor looked at him. No. It is the first responsible thing said in this room. Evelyn stood. Dean, this is going nowhere. She is refusing to cooperate. Maya lifted her eyes. I'm refusing to confess. You are refusing a chance to protect yourself, Dean said. No, Maya said. You are refusing to show when my account was changed. Officer Perez nodded once, almost to herself. Dean saw it. He did not like it. He reached for his laptop and opened the administrative dashboard. For a moment, the screen faced only him. His fingers moved over the keys. Evelyn's gaze locked onto the screen. Her breathing changed. Victor noticed. Maya noticed too. Dean clicked once, then again. A small notification appeared in the corner of the screen. He tried to close it quickly, but not quickly enough. Manual dining edits unavailable. Victor's voice cut through the room. Why are manual edits unavailable? Dean shut the laptop halfway. That is a temporary system issue. Maya stared at him. Manual edits? Evelyn grabbed her folder. I need to retrieve the original dining record from my office. Victor looked at her. Sit down. Evelyn froze. Dean stood. Mr. Williams, you do not give instructions to Harrington staff. Victor did not raise his voice. Then you give one. Tell her to stay in this room while the record is reviewed. Dean did not. Evelyn moved toward the door. This will take 2 minutes. Officer Perez stood. I'll go with you. Evelyn stopped again. That is not necessary. Perez looked at Dean. If records are being retrieved during an active dispute, it is necessary. Dean's face tightened. Officer Perez, remain here. That was the wrong answer. Maya saw it in Perez's eyes. Victor saw it too. Evelyn opened the door and stepped into the hall. Grace and Caleb were outside with phones raised. Evelyn turned her face away and walked fast toward the stairwell. Dean closed the door behind her. Victor looked at the closed door, then back at Dean. Now I know there is a record. Dean said nothing. Maya finally understood what her father had seen before everyone else. They had not brought her upstairs to find the truth. They had brought her upstairs to keep her still while someone changed it. The conference room door stayed closed, but the silence inside it did not feel empty. Dean Halden returned to his chair and adjusted the folder in front of him, aligning the corners against the table as if neat paper could restore control. Maya watched him. Where is she going? Dean did not look up. To retrieve supporting documentation. You mean to change it? His eyes lifted. Be careful. Miss Williams. Victor leaned back in his chair. She asked a reasonable question. She accused a senior staff member of misconduct. No, Victor said. She described the timing. Officer Perez remained standing near the door. Her hand rested near her radio, but she did not use it. Dean, I think we should pause until Mrs. Grant returns. Dean's face tightened. This meeting is not under campus security control. No, Perez said. But if records are being handled during an active accusation, I need to know they are preserved. That is not your department. It became my department when I was called into the room. Maya looked at Perez, surprised by the firmness in her voice. The officer was not smiling. She was not fully on Maya's side yet, but she was no longer simply standing where Dean had placed her. Dean closed his laptop completely. Nobody is altering anything. Victor looked at the closed computer. Then open it. Dean did not move. Maya looked at the voluntary withdrawal agreement still lying in front of her. Her name sat at the top, already formatted into the college's language, already prepared to remove her from campus. She pushed it away. I'm not signing this. Dean's mouth hardened. Then you are choosing a more difficult path. I'm choosing the true one. Before Dean could answer, a faint sound came from the hallway. Grace's voice. She went downstairs. Dean stood. This is exactly why students should not be gathering outside administrative offices. Caleb's voice followed, louder. She went toward dining services. Why would she go there if the records are already printed? Dean stepped toward the door, then stopped himself. He knew opening it would invite the hallway back into the meeting. Victor took out his phone. Dean noticed immediately. Mr. Williams, recording is not permitted in this room without consent. Victor did not look at him. I'm not recording. His thumbs moved once, then again. The message was short. Begin silent audit. Full dining contract. Tonight. He sent it, locked the screen, and placed the phone face down on the table. Dean watched the motion. Who did you just contact? Victor looked at him. Someone who understands records. That is not an answer. It is the only one you need right now. Dean laughed softly, but there was no confidence in it. Mr. Williams, I don't know what you think is happening here, but Harrington College does not respond to outside pressure from upset parents. Victor's eyes stayed calm. Good. Then respond to the facts. What facts? My daughter's confirmed meal plan. Your employee's accusation. A fraud flag no one can explain. A prepared withdrawal agreement. A staff member leaving the room when manual edits become unavailable. Dean said nothing. Maya turned toward him. That is a lot of facts. Officer Perez looked at the laptop. Dean, can you show the account history without Mrs. Grant? The system is temporarily unavailable. Only the manual edits? Dean's jaw shifted. Victor spoke quietly. That was the message on your screen. Dean looked at him. You read fast. I had to. The room held still for a moment. Downstairs, Evelyn Grant moved quickly through the back hallway of the dining hall. She kept her eyes straight ahead as she passed 2 student workers and pushed into the small dining services office behind the kitchen. The room had 1 desk, 2 file cabinets, a time clock, and an old desktop computer that controlled local dining access reports. She shut the door. Her hands moved to the keyboard. Password, dashboard, administrative access, student search, Maya Williams. The account appeared, inactive. Fraud review, manual adjustment history. Evelyn clicked once. The system asked for confirmation. She clicked again. A warning appeared. Deleting local records does not remove mirrored vendor logs. She stared at the message. Then she opened another tab and began searching for override history. In the conference room, Dean's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and turned it face down too quickly. Victor saw it. Bad news? Dean ignored him. Maya spoke. Is that Evelyn? Dean said. Miss Williams, your tone is becoming adversarial. My future is on your table, and I am trying to give you an option. No. You are trying to make me disappear before you check the truth. Officer Perez looked toward the door. Dean, I'm going downstairs. You will stay here. Perez did not move for 2 seconds. Then she said, with respect, I don't take operational orders from administrative affairs. Dean's face flushed. Officer Perez. She opened the door. Grace and Caleb stood in the hallway. Grace's phone was still raised, though her arm looked tired. Caleb stepped forward. "She's in the dining office," Caleb said. Tom saw her. Perez looked at him. "Stay here." Caleb nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Dean came to the doorway. "Officer, I am instructing you not to interfere with staff records." Perez turned back. "And I am documenting that instruction." That stopped him. For the first time that night, Dean Halden looked less like a man managing a problem and more like a man being written into one. Perez walked down the hall. Dean closed the door again, slower this time. Victor picked up the voluntary withdrawal agreement and read another line. "This says she waives claims related to dining access, scholarship classification, administrative error, emotional distress, and reputational harm." Maya stared at him. "All of that is in there?" Victor nodded. "All of that." Dean returned to his seat. "Standard language." Victor placed the document flat on the table. "No. Standard language protects the institution from unknown mistakes. This protects the institution from something it already knows." Dean's voice dropped. "You are making assumptions far beyond your position." Victor looked at him for a long moment. "You don't know my position." The words did not reveal anything. They only changed the air. Dean's phone buzzed again. This time he did not touch it. Maya heard footsteps in the hallway. Quick, controlled, coming closer. Then Officer Perez's voice outside the door. "Dean Halden, you need to open this room." Dean stood, but he did not move toward the door. Perez knocked once, harder. "Now." Victor rose slowly. Maya rose with him. Dean opened the door. Officer Perez stood there with Tom Briggs behind her. Tom's face had gone pale. In his hand was a printed page, different from the first one. At the bottom, in small black type, was a timestamp. Perez looked at Maya, then at Victor, then at Dean. "The account was changed at 5:56 p.m., she said. 12 minutes before Maya Williams reached the front of the dinner line. No one spoke. Then Tom swallowed and added, "And it was changed from Evelyn Grant's login." Dean Halden reached for the printed page before anyone else could study it. Officer Perez did not hand it to him. She kept the paper in her own grip and looked directly at Maya. "The first confirmed change was made at 5:56 p.m. Your card was scanned in the cafeteria at 6:08. Maya looked at Dean. "So, I was flagged before I ever reached the counter." Dean's face stayed controlled, but his eyes had changed. A timestamp alone does not explain context. Victor stepped forward. "It explains enough to stop calling my daughter a fraud." Evelyn Grant appeared at the end of the hall before Dean could answer. She was walking fast, but she slowed when she saw Tom standing in the doorway with Officer Perez. Her eyes dropped to the page in Perez's hand. "What is he doing here?" Evelyn asked. Tom looked down. "They asked for the expanded status report." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "You had no authority to print that." Perez turned to her. "He printed a record connected to a student accusation. That seems relevant. It is a dining operations record. It is evidence," Victor said. Evelyn looked at him with open dislike. "You do not decide what counts as evidence." "No," Victor said. "But people who destroy it usually know." Dean raised his hand. "Enough. Mrs. Grant, come inside." Evelyn entered the conference room, but she did not sit. She stood behind the chair, one hand gripping the back of it. Perez placed the printed page on the table, still closer to Maya than to Dean. Tom remained near the doorway, uncertain whether he was allowed to leave. Dean looked at him. "Tom, return to dining services," Perez said. "He should stay." Dean's head turned slowly. "Officer Perez, this is an administrative meeting. It is also a meeting where one staff member just contradicted another." Tom swallowed. "I didn't contradict anyone. I just printed the report," Evelyn snapped. "You printed a partial report." Victor looked at her. "Then show the full one." No one moved. Maya felt the room settling into a new shape. 10 minutes earlier, she had been the one being examined. Now every question had turned toward the people who brought her upstairs. Dean sat down and spoke with care. "Miss Williams, the college is willing to acknowledge that there may have been a clerical timing issue," Maya said. "A clerical timing issue?" "Yes. A system status may have been applied earlier than intended." "Earlier than intended by who?" Dean paused. "That is under review." Victor looked at Evelyn. Was it you? Evelyn lifted her chin. I manage hundreds of accounts. I do not remember every routine adjustment. Maya spoke quietly. You remembered enough to call me a fraud. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. I said the account was under review. You said local police would be called. Dean leaned forward. And that remains a possibility if the investigation reveals misuse. Perez looked at him. Dean, you now have a record showing the status changed before she used the card. That does not prove Miss Williams had no role in how the account was set up. Victor's gaze hardened. Say clearly what you are accusing her of. Dean did not. The silence answered for him. Grace's voice came from the hallway again. Maya, we're still here. Dean stood and walked to the door. He looked out at Grace, Caleb, and 3 other students who had gathered near the administrative entrance. This area is closed. If you remain here, you may be subject to conduct review. Caleb did not move. Put that in writing too. Dean shut the door. When he returned to the table, he picked up the voluntary withdrawal agreement and turned it toward Maya again. This is still the cleanest option. Maya stared at him. After that timestamp? Especially after that timestamp, Dean said, because now the matter is more complicated. If you stay and this becomes formal, there will be interviews, record reviews, possible public exposure. You are 19. You do not want your name attached to a fraud investigation in your first week of college. Victor said. Her name is attached because your employee attached it. Dean looked at Maya, not Victor. I am offering you a chance to walk away before this gets worse. For me, Maya said. Or for you? Dean's mouth tightened. For the institution, there it was. Even Evelyn looked at him. Maya leaned back from the table. At least you finally said it. Dean realized too late what his answer had revealed. He recovered quickly. The institution includes you, Miss Williams. Harrington has a duty to preserve order. Order is not the same as truth, Victor said. Dean ignored him and slid the pen closer to Maya. If you sign, your record will show voluntary withdrawal. No conduct charge. No police referral. No public statement from the college. Maya looked at the pen. Then she looked at the time-stamped report. What happens to Evelyn? Dean said. Personnel matters are confidential. What happens to the other students? What other students? Caleb's voice carried through the door. The ones she did it to before. Evelyn slammed her palm on the table, not hard enough to threaten anyone, but loud enough to show she had lost patience. This is outrageous. I have served this college for 21 years. Victor looked at her. That is not a defense. That is a timeline. Tom's face changed. He looked like a man who had just heard something he had been afraid to say. Dean noticed. Tom, you are dismissed. Tom did not move. Dean, there are more status changes. The room stopped. Evelyn turned on him. Tom. He looked at Maya, then at Caleb's shadow beyond the frosted glass. Not just hers. I've seen them before. Scholarship accounts moved to restricted access during dinner rush, then switched back later. Dean's voice dropped. You need to be very careful. Tom nodded. I'm trying to be. Maya asked. Who told you to switch them back? Tom looked at Evelyn. Evelyn said, do not answer that. Perez stepped closer to the table. He can answer. Dean's phone buzzed again. This time everyone heard it against the polished wood. He glanced down, and for 1 second his calm broke. Victor saw it. Another system issue? Dean put the phone in his pocket. We are ending this meeting. No, Maya said. Everyone looked at her. She pushed the withdrawal agreement back across the table until it stopped in front of Dean. You brought me up here to scare me into signing that. You had my name typed on it before I sat down. You let her accuse me, in front of the whole dining hall. Now, your own report shows my account was changed before I used it. Dean's voice hardened. Miss Williams, do not mistake confusion for innocence. Maya held his gaze. Do not mistake silence for guilt. Victor stood beside her now. He did not touch her shoulder. He did not speak for her. He simply stood there, and the room felt smaller because of it. Dean picked up the agreement. This offer will not remain available forever, Maya said. Good. Evelyn stared at her. You have no idea what you're doing. Maya turned to her. No, but I'm starting to understand what you did. In the hallway, Footsteps approached from the administrative entrance. Not students this time. Heavier steps. More than one person. Dean looked toward the door. Victor's phone lit up on the table. He glanced at the screen but did not pick it up. A message appeared for only a second before it went dark. Audit team en route. Vendor mirror secured. The footsteps stopped outside the conference room door. Dean Halden stayed perfectly still for a moment, his hand resting on the back of his chair. His eyes locked on Victor's phone, as if the dark screen had said something out loud. Maya noticed it. So did Officer Perez. Dean turned toward the door. "This meeting is closed." A woman's voice answered from the hallway, calm and firm. Not anymore. The door opened before Dean could reach it. A woman in a navy suit stepped in, followed by two men carrying slim laptop cases and a third person with a tablet tucked under one arm. She was in her early 50s, with gray at her temples, a leather portfolio in one hand, and the kind of expression that made a room stop pretending. Dean's face changed. "Who are you?" She looked at him once, then at Maya, then at Victor. She did not say Victor's name. "My name is Naomi Reed. I'm legal counsel." "For whom?" Dean asked. "For the party now reviewing this matter." "That is not an answer. It is the answer you are getting until the appropriate disclosures are made." Dean gave a short, humorless laugh. "This is a private college administrative proceeding. You cannot simply walk into a student conduct meeting." Naomi held up a document. "This is not a student conduct meeting. This is an attempted forced withdrawal connected to an active dining services fraud allegation, a disputed scholarship classification, and a possible alteration of vendor-managed student access records. You turned it into something much larger when you put that agreement on the table." Dean's eyes moved to the voluntary withdrawal agreement. For the first time, he seemed to regret that it was visible. Evelyn stood. "This is outrageous. She has no authority here." Naomi looked at the printed report on the table. "Mrs. Grant, did you access Maya Williams's dining profile at 5:56 p.m.? Evelyn's mouth tightened. "I manage dining profiles all day. That was not my question." Dean stepped between them verbally, though not physically. "Mrs. Grant does not answer questions from outside counsel." Naomi nodded. "Then she can answer them later, under oath." The room went quiet. Maya looked at her father. Victor remained still, his face unreadable. He had not introduced Naomi. He had not explained how she knew where to come. That made Dean more nervous than an explanation would have. One of the auditors opened a laptop on the side table. Dean reacted immediately. "You are not accessing Harrington systems." The auditor did not look up. Naomi answered for him. "We are not accessing Harrington systems. We are accessing the vendor mirror." Dean froze for half a second. "What vendor mirror?" Naomi looked at him. "The one your dining services contractor maintains off-site for billing, reconciliation, and compliance. The one local users cannot erase from a cafeteria office." Tom Briggs let out a slow breath near the door. Evelyn turned toward him sharply. Dean said, "This is highly inappropriate." So was asking a 19-year-old freshman to sign away her legal rights before confirming who changed her account, Naomi said. Maya looked down at the agreement. The words seemed different now, not less threatening, but less powerful. Officer Perez stepped closer to the table. "Counselor, are you saying there's a separate copy of the access logs?" "Yes," Naomi said. "There always is when a contractor bills by account status, swipe category, and meal eligibility." Dean's face tightened at the word bills. Victor noticed. That word bothers him. Dean turned to him. "You are making comments on matters you do not understand." Victor's voice stayed low. "Then explain them." Dean did not. The auditor at the laptop spoke for the first time. "We have the Maya Williams profile." Naomi moved beside him. "Read the sequence." He read from the screen. "Account created under full residential premium plan. Confirmation issued 11:42 a.m. Student accounts verified scholarship package 12:03 p.m. No restrictions." Maya looked at Dean. "That was this morning." The auditor continued. "Manual status change at 5:56 p.m. Changed from full residential premium plan to inactive fraud review." Naomi asked, "User?" The auditor glanced at the screen. "E. Grant admin." Evelyn snapped. That could be any terminal under dining management. Tom said quietly. No. That login is yours. Evelyn turned on him. You need to stop talking. Naomi looked at Tom. Mr. Briggs, did anyone instruct staff not to preserve records related to scholarship dining? Dean said. Do not answer that. Tom looked at Dean, then at Evelyn, then at Maya. Yes, Evelyn whispered. Tom, he swallowed. We were told not to write notes in the system when scholarship accounts were adjusted during meal periods. By whom? Naomi asked. Tom's eyes went to Dean. Dean stood very straight. This is becoming defamatory. Naomi's voice remained even. No, Dean Halden. This is becoming documented. The second auditor turned his tablet toward Naomi. We also have deletion attempts from a local dining office machine at 8:49 p.m. Officer Perez looked at Evelyn. That was when you left the room. Evelyn's face had lost color, but her voice stayed sharp. I was retrieving records, the auditor said. The user opened manual adjustment history for Maya Williams, Caleb Moore, Darnell Price, Alina Torres, and 6 other accounts before initiating a local delete command. Caleb's voice came from the hallway. Say that name again. Dean moved toward the door. This hallway needs to be cleared, Grace answered before he reached it. We heard enough. Naomi looked at Dean. Do not threaten student witnesses. I am maintaining order. No. You are trying to move people away from information that contradicts your document. Maya stood then. Not quickly. Not dramatically. She simply rose from her chair and looked at the paper that was supposed to end her future. You knew there were others, she said. Dean's eyes flicked toward her. Miss Williams, sit down. No. The word was quiet, but everyone heard it. Victor did not move to help her. He let her stand on her own. Maya looked at Evelyn. You didn't just make a mistake with my card. You had a way to do this. Evelyn said. You don't understand dining operations. I understand being accused before I was asked one real question. Naomi's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. The vendor has preserved the full 3-year dining variance file. Dean's composure cracked. That file is proprietary. Naomi looked up. Then you know exactly which file I mean. No one spoke. The wall clock ticked toward 9. Outside the conference room, more students had gathered in the hallway, but they were silent now. Inside, the table held the withdrawal agreement, the time-stamped printout, and the first clean proof that Maya's accusation had been built before she ever reached the counter. Dean Halden slowly closed his folder. Victor watched him do it. Naomi did too. Maya understood then that the fight was no longer about clearing her name. Her name had opened the door. Behind it was a system with records, payments, deleted notes, and students who had been told to leave the line before anyone called it policy. Dean Halden reopened his folder, but he did not take out another form. That alone told Maya something had changed. The man who had spoken about procedure, privacy, and institutional order now looked like he was counting every word before he allowed it into the room. Naomi Reed stood beside the side table while the auditors worked. She had not raised her voice once. She did not need to. The laptop screen had done more damage to Dean's position than any argument could have done. Dean looked at her. You are reviewing contractor data without authorization from this institution. Naomi kept her eyes on the screen. The contractor maintains billing records for external compliance. We have lawful access to the mirror file through the reviewing party. And who is this reviewing party? Naomi finally looked at him. You will receive that information when it becomes necessary. It is necessary now. No, Naomi said. What is necessary now is preserving evidence. Evelyn let out a sharp breath. Evidence of what? A freshman's account was flagged. That happens. Tom Briggs looked at her. Not like this. Evelyn turned on him. You have been here 6 years, Tom. I have been here 21. Do not pretend you understand my department better than I do. Tom's face tightened, but he did not back down. I understand what I printed. Dean pointed at the chair near the wall. Mr. Briggs, sit down and stop speaking unless asked. Tom did not sit. Officer Perez moved closer to the door. Dean, I think Mr. Briggs should remain available. Dean's tone sharpened. Officer Perez, your role here is limited. So is yours, if this turns into evidence tampering, she said. The room went still. Dean looked at her as if she had crossed a line he expected everyone else to fear. Choose your words carefully. I am. Maya watched Evelyn. The dining manager was no longer looking at her. Evelyn's eyes kept moving between the laptop and Dean, waiting for him to regain control. That was when Maya understood their relationship was not just employee and administrator. Evelyn expected protection. Naomi nodded to the first auditor. Show the broader search, the auditor typed. A list appeared on the screen. Names, student ID numbers, dining classifications, status changes, timestamps. Naomi read the first few aloud. Caleb Moore, full athletic scholarship, restricted access, applied 6:14 p.m., September 12, last year, reversed 9:03 p.m., same evening, Darnell Price, first-generation grant recipient, restricted access, applied during dinner period on 6 separate dates, Alina Torres, need-based scholarship, premium residential plan changed to standard limited access, then restored after billing close. Caleb's voice came from the hallway. Darnell left school. Maya turned toward the door. Dean said, "That student's enrollment status is private." Caleb answered, "He left because your office said he owed money for meals he was supposed to have." Naomi looked at Dean. "Is that true?" Dean's expression shut down. "I will not discuss another student's record in front of unauthorized parties." Victor spoke for the first time in several minutes. "You had no trouble discussing my daughter's record in a cafeteria." Dean looked at him. "Mr. Williams, I have shown great patience." Victor stepped closer to the table. "No, you have shown fear and called it patience." Evelyn's voice cut in. "This is absurd. Scholarship plans have conditions. Students misunderstand them all the time." Maya looked at her. "Then why change them during dinner?" Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. Maya continued, calm and direct. "Why not change them in the morning? Why not send an email? Why not notify student accounts? Why wait until students are standing in line with food in front of them?" No one answered. Grace's voice came through the door. "Because humiliation was part of it." Dean turned sharply. "Miss Miller, leave this area now." Naomi looked at him. "Do not threaten her." "I am not threatening anyone. I am maintaining order," Maya said. "Order is what you call it when everyone else stays quiet." Victor looked at her, but he did not interrupt. The second auditor turned his tablet toward Naomi. "We have vendor billing tied to the same nights." Naomi stepped beside him. "Read the pattern." The auditor scrolled. "Accounts marked restricted during active meal periods remained billed under full eligibility. Student access denied or downgraded locally. Vendor invoice still calculated at full meal plan rate. Difference categorized later, under operational adjustment." Dean's face tightened at the phrase. Naomi caught it. "You recognize that category? It is a standard accounting label. Used for what? Operational variance. What does that mean in plain English?" Dean did not answer. Victor looked at Maya. "That means money moved." Dean snapped. "You are not qualified to interpret institutional finance." Victor's eyes stayed on Dean. "Then explain why students lost meals while someone still billed for them." Evelyn grabbed the edge of the chair. "Nobody lost meals. They were redirected." Maya turned to her. "To where?" "To appropriate service categories." "You mean the back line?" Evelyn's face hardened. "That is not what it was called." Caleb answered from the hall. "That is exactly what you called it." Tom spoke again, quieter this time. "Some staff called it Section B." Evelyn whipped toward him. "Tom." He looked down, then back up. "I heard it. I said nothing. That was wrong." For the first time, Maya felt the room shift toward truth without anyone needing to shout. Naomi asked, "Was Section B an official Harrington dining policy?" Dean said, "No." The answer came too fast. Naomi turned to him. "Then why do we have internal notes referring to aid students being redirected?" Dean's eyes moved to the laptop. "I would need to see the context." The auditor clicked once. An email opened. Naomi did not read the whole thing. She read only the line that mattered. "Keep scholarship dining numbers quiet until after the Williams review." Dean's face lost its color. Victor did not move. Maya heard the name Williams and looked at her father. but his expression gave her nothing. Dean looked at him too, then quickly away, as if he still did not understand what connected and what did not. Naomi closed the email. Dean Halden. Who wrote this? He swallowed. That appears to be from my office. From your account. Naomi said. It requires context. Then provide it. Dean stood. This meeting is suspended. Naomi shook her head. No. Your attempt to force Maya Williams to sign a withdrawal agreement is suspended. The evidence review continues. Evelyn said. You cannot do that. Naomi looked at her. Mrs. Grant, you tried to delete local logs less than an hour ago. I would be very careful using the word cannot. Maya looked at the paper with her name on it. The college had tried to make her disappear with one signature. Now the same table held names, timestamps, billing categories, and emails that would not disappear with her. Dean reached for his phone. Officer Perez stepped closer. Dean, who are you calling? He looked at her, then at Naomi, then at Victor. The board chair, he said. Victor's voice was calm. Good. Tell them to come here. Dean Halden did not call from the conference room phone. He used his cell, turning his back slightly as if that could make the conversation private. It did not. His voice was lower now, but everyone heard enough. Arthur, I need you in administrative affairs. Now. No, not tomorrow. Now. He paused and looked once toward Naomi. There is an outside legal team here reviewing vendor data. Yes. Dining services. Yes. That Williams review. Maya caught the phrase again. Williams review. She looked at her father, but Victor gave her nothing. He stood near the table, hands still, face quiet, eyes on Dean. He did not look surprised by anything, and that bothered Dean more than open anger would have. Dean ended the call and placed the phone on the table. The board chair is coming. Naomi nodded. Good. We will preserve the room as it is. You are not in charge of this room. No, Naomi said. The evidence is. Evelyn let out a bitter laugh. Evidence. You people keep saying that like a few computer entries explain years of work. Tom Briggs looked at her. They explain a lot. Evelyn turned on him. You think this makes you clean? You printed what I told you to print for years. Tom went pale. The room absorbed that sentence before Evelyn realized what she had said. Naomi looked at him. Mr. Briggs, did Mrs. Grant instruct you to print selective account records? Tom swallowed. Sometimes. Related to scholarship students? He looked at the floor. Dean said, Tom, do not answer any more questions. Tom looked up. I did what I was told. I have a mortgage, 2 kids. I thought if I kept my head down, it wasn't my problem. Caleb's voice came from the hallway. It was our problem. Tom flinched. Maya looked at him. She did not hate him. That surprised her. She hated what he had helped protect. She hated the silence, but she could see the fear in him. And fear had a way of making ordinary people useful to cruel ones. Naomi said, Mr. Briggs, did you ever see students with valid plans denied meals after manual restrictions? Yes. Did you ever report it? No. Why? Tom glanced at Evelyn. Because everyone knew who controlled the schedule. Evelyn's face tightened. That is a lie. Tom shook his head. You cut shifts. You moved people to weekends. You wrote bad evaluations. Everybody knew. Officer Perez looked at Dean. Were complaints filed? Dean answered too fast. Dining complaints are handled through student services. That was not my question. Dean's silence told the room enough. Naomi turned to the auditors. Pull complaint references tied to dining access, scholarship meal status, racial discrimination, or restricted line placement. Dean snapped. You cannot pull student complaint files. We are not pulling Harrington's internal files, Naomi said. We are cross-referencing vendor incident notes, billing disputes, and emails copied to contractor accounts. You may have buried complaints internally. You did not control every copy. The first auditor typed. Names began appearing. Not full reports yet, just headers. Darnell Price meal access dispute. Alina Torres premium plan downgrade. Caleb Moore, athletic scholarship dining restriction. Janelle Watkins denied dinner access. Marcus Hill accused of card sharing. Tanya Reed charged cash for covered meals. Maya read the names as they appeared. Each one felt like a person pulled from a locked room. "How many?" she asked. The auditor looked at Naomi before answering. "So far, 31 accounts with repeated manual restrictions during peak meal periods." Grace spoke from the hallway. 31? No one told her to be quiet this time. Dean rubbed his forehead. "These are incomplete records," Victor said. "Incomplete records usually make honest people want the complete ones." Dean looked at him. "And dishonest people?" Victor did not blink. "They offer settlements before anyone asks for them." Maya looked down at the withdrawal agreement again. That paper had changed meaning 3 times in 1 hour. First it looked like punishment. Then it looked like a threat. Now it looked like a cover. The conference room door opened, and an older white man entered with a wool coat over his suit and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. He was in his late 60s, with the careful posture of someone used to being recognized. "Robert," he said, then stopped when he saw the room. His eyes moved over Maya, Victor, Naomi, Officer Perez, Tom, Evelyn, the auditors, the open laptop, and the withdrawal agreement on the table. Dean straightened. "Arthur, thank you for coming." Arthur Bell, chair of Harrington's Board of Trustees, stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "What am I walking into?" Naomi answered before Dean could shape the story. An attempted forced withdrawal of a 19-year-old freshman after she was publicly accused of dining fraud, followed by evidence that her account was manually altered before she used it. Dean said, "That is a hostile characterization." Naomi looked at him. "It is the polite one." Arthur's eyes went to Maya. "You are the student?" "Maya Williams. Are you all right?" It was the first time anyone from Harrington leadership had asked her that. Maya gave the honest answer. "No, sir." Arthur's mouth tightened. He looked at Dean. "Why was I not called before this reached outside counsel?" Dean said. "We were trying to handle it discreetly." Victor spoke. "That is the problem." Arthur turned toward him. "And you are?" Victor held his gaze. "Her father." Arthur nodded once, then looked back at Dean. "Why is there a withdrawal agreement on the table?" Dean's answer came slower now. It was one possible administrative resolution. Arthur picked it up, read the first page, then the second. His face changed. "This includes a waiver of claims," Naomi said, "and a confidentiality clause preventing her from speaking with legal counsel." Arthur looked at Dean. "Robert." Dean held up a hand. "This language is standard." Arthur dropped the agreement back onto the table. "Not for a freshman dinner dispute," Evelyn finally spoke. "With respect, Chair Bell, this was not a dinner dispute. The account was under fraud review." Naomi gestured to the laptop. "After Mrs. Grant changed it." Arthur looked at the screen. "Show me." Dean moved quickly. "Arthur, we should review this privately," Maya said. "That is what he keeps saying when something matters." Arthur heard her. He did not dismiss it. Naomi's auditor turned the laptop. The sequence appeared again. Account confirmed, plan active, manual change at 5:56, cafeteria scan at 6:08, deletion attempt at 8:49. Arthur read the screen twice. Then he looked at Evelyn. "Did you change this student's account before she reached the dining line?" Evelyn's lips parted. "I made a routine adjustment based on scholarship classification." Arthur turned to Dean. "Is that a policy?" Dean said. "There are operational practices." Arthur cut him off. "Is it a policy?" "No formal policy." "No formal policy," Maya repeated quietly. Those 3 words stayed in the room. Naomi's phone buzzed. She checked it and looked at Victor for less than a second before addressing Arthur. "Chair Bell. The vendor mirror also contains billing variance categories tied to these restrictions. This is not limited to Maya Williams." Arthur closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, he looked older. "How many students?" Naomi said. "At least 31 so far." Tom added, "It's more." Everyone turned to him. He took a breath. "If you go back more than 3 years, it's more." Arthur Bell stayed near the table, one hand resting on the back of an empty chair. He did not sit. The room had changed too quickly for that. A board chair did not sit until he knew whether he was presiding over a complaint, a scandal, or a crime. "Go back," Arthur said. Dean Halden turned to him. "Arthur, I strongly advise we stop this informal review until counsel for the college is present." Naomi Reed looked at him. "College counsel can join. Nothing prevents evidence from being preserved." "Preserved by whom?" Dean asked. "By the people who found it before it vanished." Evelyn Grant let out a tight breath. "That is offensive." Tom Briggs looked at her. "It is accurate." Evelyn pointed at him. "You have no idea what you are doing to yourself." Tom's voice stayed low. "For once, I do." Arthur looked at Tom. "How far back?" Tom wiped his palms on his pants. "I've only been here 6 years, but the names go back before me. The system changed vendors 3 years ago, but some paper reports were scanned into the new platform. If the audit team can search those attachments, they'll find more," Dean said. "This is speculation from a dining employee under stress." Tom looked at Maya, then at Caleb through the glass. Darnell Price wasn't speculation. Alina Torres wasn't speculation. Caleb wasn't speculation. Maya wasn't speculation. 12 minutes before she got to the counter, Maya stood still beside her father. She had heard her name said many times that night, but this was the first time it sounded connected to something larger than accusation. Not because she wanted that, because the names on the screen proved she had not imagined the pattern. Naomi turned to the second auditor. "Search scanned attachments. Keyword restricted. Variance, scholarship dining, and unclaimed." Dean stepped forward. "Stop." The auditor paused, fingers above the keyboard. Arthur looked at Dean. "Why?" Dean faced him, no longer trying to smile. "Because this is no longer contained. If these people continue pulling unverified material in front of students, staff, and campus security, the college will be exposed to unnecessary liability." Victor spoke quietly. "Unnecessary?" Dean looked at him with open irritation. "Yes, unnecessary. There are proper channels for this." Maya said, "You tried to make me leave through a proper channel." Arthur's eyes moved back to the withdrawal agreement. He picked it up again, then read the confidentiality section more carefully. His face hardened with every line. "Robert," he said, "who approved this language?" Dean did not answer. Arthur asked again, "Who approved it?" Dean glanced once at Evelyn. That glance was enough. Naomi caught it. "Mrs. Grant provided the original incident template, didn't she?" Evelyn snapped. "I am not a lawyer." "No," Naomi said. "You are a dining manager with a prepared withdrawal packet for a freshman you accused before verifying the account." Dean said, "This document came from administrative affairs, and it was prepared before Maya Williams entered this room," Naomi said. Arthur looked at Dean. "Is that true?" Dean's answer came slowly. "It was prepared as a precaution." "A precaution against what?" Victor asked. Dean turned on him. "Against exactly this kind of spectacle." Victor nodded once. "Not fraud, exposure." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then the auditor said, "We have scanned attachments." Naomi looked at Arthur. "Chair bell. You should see this." The screen filled with older records. Some were clean digital entries. Some were scanned meal adjustment sheets with handwritten notes. The dates spread across years. Student names appeared beside words that sounded harmless, until placed next to the same pattern again and again. Restricted. Aid line. Hold until review. Cash only. Do not escalate. Arthur leaned closer. "How many?" The auditor answered. "The system is still indexing. Current count is 58 unique students with repeated access restrictions tied to scholarship classification." Grace's voice came through the door. 58? No one corrected her. Caleb said, "Ask how many were Black or Latino." The auditor looked at Naomi. Naomi nodded. He typed, "Based on demographic reporting fields attached to scholarship programs, most are Black, Latino, or first-generation low-income students. I do not want to state a final number without full review." Arthur's face went still. Evelyn said, "Scholarship students have complicated accounts. That is all this proves." Maya turned to her. "Then why was I called a fraud?" Evelyn's eyes stayed hard. "Because your account was flagged. You flagged it. I applied a review status. Before I got there, Evelyn's mouth opened, but no answer came. Naomi's first auditor clicked into another folder. We have a billing file tied to scholarship dining variants. Dean moved toward the laptop. Officer Perez stepped into his path without touching him. Dean stopped. "Officer," Perez said. "You can see it from there." Arthur looked at the screen. "Open it." The auditor opened the file. It showed monthly summaries, contractor payments, meal eligibility totals, actual served meals, and adjustment categories. Naomi read one line, then another. Students eligible for full dining. Fewer meals served. Full reimbursement billed. Difference moved to administrative dining reserve. Victor looked at Dean. "Who controlled that reserve?" Dean said nothing. Arthur answered, slowly, as if he hated the words. "Administrative affairs." Maya looked at Dean. "Your office," Dean said. "You do not understand institutional accounting," Naomi said. "Then explain why students were denied covered meals while the contractor billed Harrington as though those meals were provided." Evelyn said, "No one was denied. They were redirected." "To the back wall?" Maya asked. Evelyn flinched. Tom whispered, "Section B." Arthur turned toward him. "What did you say?" Tom took a breath. "Some staff called it Section B. Not on paper, never in official policy. But that's what it was." Dean closed his eyes briefly. "Tom, stop." "No," Tom said. "I should have stopped years ago." The room went quiet again. But it was not the same silence as before. This one had weight. Even Dean seemed to feel it pressing against the walls. Arthur removed his glasses and placed them on the table. "Robert, did you know students were being redirected by scholarship status?" Dean straightened. "I knew dining services used temporary operational categories during high-volume periods. Did you know race was involved?" Dean's voice lowered. "Absolutely not." Naomi clicked once on the laptop. An email appeared. The subject line read, "Scholarship Dining, Optics, Williams Visit." Maya saw her last name again. Victor did not move. Naomi read one sentence aloud. "Keep visible access issues quiet until after the Williams review. We cannot risk donor confidence over dining variance complaints." Arthur stared at Dean. "That came from you." Dean's face was pale now. "It is being taken out of context," Victor said. "Then put it in context." Dean looked at him, then at Naomi, then at the auditors. "I want to know who authorized you to access those files." Naomi closed the laptop halfway, not to hide the evidence, but to mark the moment. "You will," she said. Dean's voice sharpened. "I want the name now." Naomi looked at Victor for the first time since entering the room. It was quick, but everyone saw it. Dean saw it too. His eyes moved from Naomi to Victor, then to Maya. For the first time that night, Dean Robert Halden looked less angry than afraid. Victor stood beside his daughter, still unnamed by title, still carrying no badge, no entourage, no obvious power. But the room had begun to understand that every answer Dean wanted had been sitting across from him all along. Dean Halden straightened his tie, though it had not moved. "I asked a direct question," he said. "Who authorized?" Naomi Reed opened her leather portfolio and removed a sealed document. She did not hurry. She placed it on the table between the withdrawal agreement and the time-stamped dining report. "For the record," she said, "this review is authorized by the chair of the Williams Equity Trust." Arthur Bell's face changed first. Dean's followed a second later. Evelyn looked from one man to the other. "What is that supposed to mean?" Arthur did not answer her. His eyes were on Naomi. "Williams Equity Trust authorized this?" Naomi nodded. "Yes." Dean's voice lost its smoothness. "That is impossible." Victor remained beside Maya, silent. Maya looked at her father. Williams. The name had been spoken all night in fragments. Williams Review, Williams Visit, Williams Donor Confidence. She had assumed it was coincidence, or some donor family she did not know. Now the words sat in the room like a locked door about to open. Arthur turned slowly toward Victor. "Mr. Williams?" Victor met his eyes. Naomi said, "Victor Williams is the chair of the Williams Equity Trust." No one moved. Not Dean. Not Evelyn. Not Tom. Not Officer Perez. Even Grace and Caleb went silent beyond the door. Naomi continued. Each word measured. He is also founder and chairman of Williams Meridian Group, the medical technology firm funding the proposed $25 million student equity and scholarship support grant, currently under final review by Harrington College. Maya stared at her father. Victor did not look away from Dean. Dean's mouth opened slightly, then closed. The confidence he had worn all evening disappeared in pieces. "Mr. Williams," he said, and this time the title sounded different. "You should have identified yourself." Victor answered quietly. "I did. I told you I was her father." Arthur looked down at the withdrawal agreement, then at Maya. His face tightened with embarrassment and something close to anger. "Robert, did you know who this was?" Dean swallowed. "No," Victor said. "That should not have mattered." The room held that sentence. Evelyn gripped the back of her chair. "If I had known there was a donor connection, I would have referred the matter differently." Maya turned toward her. "That is your defense." Evelyn froze. Victor looked at Evelyn for the first time since Naomi spoke. "You should not have needed to know who I was, to treat my daughter like a human being." Evelyn's face hardened again, but the hardness looked forced now. "I followed dining procedure." Naomi picked up the printed report. "There is no dining procedure that permits a manager to downgrade a confirmed student meal plan 12 minutes before the student reaches the counter, accuse her publicly of fraud, and then attempt to delete the adjustment history." Dean stepped in quickly. "Mrs. Grant has not admitted to deleting anything." Naomi looked toward the auditor. "Show the deletion event." The auditor turned the laptop toward the table. "Local deletion attempt initiated at 8:49 p.m. from the dining services office terminal. User session associated with eGrant admin. Targeted adjustment history. Maya Williams and 9 other scholarship-linked accounts." Arthur leaned closer. "9 others tonight?" "Opened tonight," the auditor said. "The broader pattern goes back years." Dean put both hands on the table. "Arthur, we need to stop this before more private student information is exposed." Arthur did not look at him. Private student information was exposed when Maya Williams was accused in a cafeteria. Maya heard her name and felt the room turn toward her again. This time, the attention was different. She was no longer the problem being discussed. She was the person who had been wronged. Victor finally turned to her. His voice softened. "Maya, I'm sorry." She did not know what part he was apologizing for hiding the trust, for arriving too late, for the fact that his name could change how people treated her. She only knew he meant it. "Did you know?" she asked. "I knew the trust was reviewing Harrington," he said. "I did not know they were doing this to students." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wanted to enter this place as Maya Williams, not as my daughter." That was true. She had asked for it. She had told him she did not want professors, students, or administrators looking at her like an extension of his money. She wanted to earn every room on her own name. Dean heard the exchange and tried to move into it. "Miss Williams, I hope you understand that tonight's events were not a reflection of Harrington's values." Maya looked at him. "They were written on your paper." No one spoke. Arthur lifted the voluntary withdrawal agreement. "This paper will not be used. Not tonight. Not ever." Dean's head turned sharply. "Arthur." "No," Arthur said. "You will not defend this document to me." Naomi placed another page beside the first. "For the record, Maya Williams is not withdrawing, not waiving claims, not agreeing to confidentiality, and not accepting any allegation of dining fraud." Dean said, "No formal finding has been made." Victor looked at him. "Then why was her exit already typed?" Dean had no answer. The first auditor spoke again. "We have preserved the vendor mirror. Full export is in progress." Naomi nodded. "Good. Chain of custody?" "Logged." Dean looked from the auditor to Naomi. "This is excessive." Naomi's voice stayed even. A student was framed with a fraud flag. Evidence was nearly erased. A withdrawal agreement was prepared before a review. The billing files suggest financial benefit from denied meal access. Excessive would be pretending this is still a cafeteria misunderstanding. Evelyn sat down slowly. Her face had gone pale. Officer Perez looked at Arthur. "Chair Bell, do you want campus security to preserve the dining services office?" Arthur answered without hesitation. "Yes. Lock it down." No one enters without documentation. Evelyn stood again. You cannot lock me out of my own office. Arthur looked at her. Mrs. Grant, as of this moment, it is not your office. That was the first direct blow. Evelyn's lips parted, but nothing came out. Dean moved toward Arthur and lowered his voice, though everyone still heard him. We can manage this. Let me contact college counsel, isolate the records, and prepare a controlled statement. Victor looked at him. You already tried to isolate the student. Dean turned back. Mr. Williams, I understand your anger. No, Victor said. You understand your exposure. Arthur closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, he looked at Naomi. Continue the review. Dean's face tightened. Arthur, I object. Arthur looked at him. Noted. Naomi turned back to the auditors. Pull the emails tied to the Williams review, scholarship dining variance, and administrative reserve. The second auditor typed quickly. Maya stood beside her father, still processing the truth of who he was in this room. A few minutes earlier, Dean Halden had spoken to him like a parent who did not understand college procedure. Now everyone knew Victor Williams was the man behind the money Harrington had been chasing for a year. But Victor did not look victorious. He looked at Maya, at the agreement, at the screen full of names, and his face carried something heavier than anger. Justice is not justice, he said, if it only arrives after power walks into the room. Maya looked at the laptop again. Her name had opened the file. Now every hidden name behind it was waiting to be read. Naomi Reed asked for the conference room speakerphone to be activated. Dean Halden objected before she finished the sentence. No, he said. No recorded proceedings without college counsel present. Naomi looked at Arthur Bell. Chair Bell, this room contains a disputed withdrawal agreement, a confirmed manual dining change, a deletion attempt, and a student who was threatened with police referral. Every word from this point forward should be preserved. Arthur did not hesitate. Turn it on. Dean's face tightened. Arthur, I strongly advise against that. Arthur looked at him. Your advice tonight has already placed this college in danger. Officer Perez moved to the wall console and pressed the record function. A small red light appeared beside the speakerphone. Naomi stated the date, time, room, and names of everyone present. She identified Maya Williams as a 19-year-old freshman and scholarship recipient. She identified the issue as a disputed dining fraud accusation and possible forced withdrawal. When she reached Victor, she paused only long enough for everyone to feel the weight of the name. Victor Williams, father of Maya Williams, chair of the Williams Equity Trust. Dean looked down at the table. Evelyn stared at the floor. Maya stood beside her father, trying to steady the pieces of what she had just learned. Her father had walked into the dining hall like any other parent. He had let them speak to him as if he were powerless. He had let them show who they were before they knew who he was. Naomi turned to the auditors. Begin with the student profile. The first auditor connected his laptop to the room display. Maya's dining profile appeared on the screen. Her name, ID number, scholarship package, residence hall, and dining classification were listed in clean rows. Original status, Naomi said. The auditor read from the screen. Full residential premium plan. Confirmed by student accounts at 12:03 p.m. No restrictions. No fraud alerts. No conduct holds. Naomi looked at Dean. That was before dinner. Dean said nothing. Manual status change, Naomi continued. The auditor clicked once. A second panel opened. 5:56 p.m. Status changed from full residential premium plan to inactive fraud review. User, Grant admin. Terminal, dining manager. Station 1. Evelyn lifted her head. Managers. Process adjustments all the time. Naomi did not look at her. Read the internal note attached to the adjustment. The auditor hesitated, then read it aloud. Move to aid restriction before dinner rush. Maya heard Grace gasp from the hallway. Caleb said something under his breath, but no one could make it out. Arthur turned slowly toward Evelyn. Did you write that note? Evelyn said. That phrase is being taken out of context. What context makes it acceptable? Maya asked. Evelyn looked at her, then away. Naomi kept moving. Cafeteria scan. 8 p.m. Student card presented at main dining register. Access denied under fraud review. So, Naomi said, Maya Williams was not flagged because she attempted to use the card. The card was flagged before she arrived. Dean spoke at last. That does not establish motive. Victor looked at him. It establishes the lie. Naomi turned to the second auditor. Deletion attempt. The screen changed. A new log appeared with red highlighted entries. 8:49 p.m. Local delete command, initiated from Dining Manager Station 1. User session. E. Grant, admin. Targeted manual adjustment records for Maya Williams, Caleb Moore, Darnell Price, Alina Torres, Janelle Watkins, Marcus Hill, Tanya Reed, and 3 additional accounts. Evelyn's voice rose. Those were duplicate records. The auditor opened another window. System warning generated before deletion. Deleting local records does not remove mirrored vendor logs. Tom Briggs closed his eyes. Officer Perez looked at Evelyn. You saw that warning? Evelyn said. I don't remember. Naomi asked. Do you remember leaving this room to retrieve records? I went to find the original file. You went to the only terminal tied to the deletion attempt. I did not delete anything. The auditor clicked again. A short still image from the hallway security camera appeared. It showed Evelyn entering the dining services office at 8:47 p.m. A second image showed her leaving at 8:52 p.m. Naomi said, We are not discussing memory anymore, Mrs. Grant. We are discussing timestamps. Dean pushed back from the table. This has gone far beyond the scope of tonight's student matter. Arthur looked at him. That student matter was created by your office. No, Dean said. Dining services initiated the flag. Naomi opened another file. Administrative Affairs approved the restricted classification protocol. Dean froze. The screen showed a chain of emails. Naomi did not read all of them. She selected 3 lines. First, scholarship dining variance remains within acceptable operational range if access adjustments occur during peak periods. Second, avoid written explanations to students. Refer to dining discretion. Third, keep visible access issues quiet until after the Williams review. Arthur's voice was low. Robert, that is your language. Dean's mouth tightened. Those emails concern budgeting. Victor stepped closer to the display. Budgeting what? Dean did not answer. Naomi answered for him. Meals that were funded, billed, and not served. The room stayed still. The auditor opened a spreadsheet. This file compares full meal plan eligibility against actual access. Granted, for scholarship-linked accounts, restricted access was applied during high-volume meal periods. The contractor still billed full plan eligibility. The difference was categorized under administrative dining reserve, operational adjustment, and scholarship dining variance. Maya looked at the names on the spreadsheet. Caleb, Darnell, Alina, students she had never met. People who had stood in a line like she did and been told the system had already decided against them. Caleb spoke from the hallway. Darnell's mother called 6 times. Naomi turned toward the door. Let him in. Dean said, Absolutely not. Arthur looked at Officer Perez. Let Mr. Moore and Miss Miller enter. They are witnesses. Perez opened the door. Grace and Caleb stepped in. Grace's phone was still recording, but she lowered it when she saw Maya's face. Caleb looked at the screen and went quiet. Naomi asked him, Caleb, did dining services ever tell you your account was restricted? Yes. Were you on a full scholarship meal package? Yes. Were you asked to pay cash for meals? Yes. Did you file a complaint? With student services, my coach, and dining. What happened? Caleb looked at Dean. Nothing. Then my account was restored 2 days later, like it never happened. Tom spoke quietly. That was the pattern. Evelyn turned toward him. Stop helping them. Tom looked at her, tired now. I stopped helping you. Arthur sat down at last. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 1 hour. Naomi faced the room. For clarity, Maya Williams was not caught committing fraud. Her account was manually altered by the person who accused her. Records tied to that alteration were targeted for deletion after she was brought upstairs. The same method appears in multiple scholarship accounts. The billing files show financial benefit tied to reduced access. Dean said, "You are drawing conclusions." "No," Naomi said. "The conclusions are forming themselves." Maya looked at the withdrawal agreement, still lying on the table. Her typed name waited beside empty signature lines. She picked up the document, read the first page once, then placed it back down in front of Dean. "You wanted me to sign this before any of that was shown," she said. Dean did not answer. Victor looked at Evelyn, then Dean. His voice was controlled, but every person in the room heard the anger beneath it. "You did not just deny my daughter dinner. You built a business model around denying students dignity." For the first time all night, Evelyn Grant had nothing ready to say. Naomi did not let the silence sit long enough for anyone to rebuild a lie inside it. She turned back to the screen and nodded to the second auditor. "Open the vendor correspondence." Dean Halden's chair scraped slightly as he shifted forward. "Those emails may include privileged institutional material." Naomi did not look away from the display. "Then identify the privilege before we read them." Dean said nothing. The auditor opened a folder marked North Star Dining Services Administrative Review. Maya saw dozens of email threads arranged by date. Some were recent. Some went back years. The subject lines were clean, professional, and dull in the way dangerous paperwork often was. Scholarship dining variance, operational adjustment, unclaimed meal credit, administrative reserve review, peak period access control. Naomi selected the first thread. For the record, North Star Dining Services is the contractor operating Harrington's Cafeteria, correct? Arthur Bell answered, "Yes." "And Administrative Affairs approves monthly reconciliation?" Arthur looked at Dean. "Robert's office does." Naomi opened the email. "This message is from Martin Klein, Regional Operations Director at North Star, to Dean Halden and Evelyn Grant. Date: October 18, last year. Subject: Scholarship Dining Variance." She read only the relevant line. "If aid-linked students are redirected during peak service, invoice eligibility remains unchanged unless student accounts formally reclassifies the package." Grace frowned. "What does that mean?" Naomi looked at her. "It means if a scholarship student was denied the meal at the counter, the contractor could still bill as if the meal was available." Caleb said, "So they got paid either way." The auditor clicked to the next message. Naomi read again. "Avoid written denials. Use temporary access language at point of service." Maya looked at Evelyn. "Temporary access language. Is that what you called it when you told me people like me don't eat there?" Evelyn's face tightened. "I never used that phrase in an email." "No," Maya said. "You saved it for students." Tom Briggs lowered his eyes. Arthur looked at Dean. "Robert, did you respond to this?" The auditor opened the reply before Dean could answer. Naomi read it. "Understood. Keep dining classifications flexible through the Williams review period. We need clean numbers and no visible disputes." Sent from Robert Halden's account. The room stayed quiet. Dean spoke slowly. "That email concerns donor reporting. Clean numbers means complete reports, not concealment," Victor said. "Then why add no visible disputes?" Dean looked at him. "Because donors do not need to be distracted by unresolved operational noise." Maya repeated the word. "Noise." Dean looked at her, and for once he seemed to know he had chosen badly. Caleb stepped closer to the table. "Darnell was noise?" Dean said, "I do not know the details of Darnell Price's case." Tom looked up. "Yes, you do." Dean turned on him. "Tom." Tom pointed at the screen. "There's an email about him. March 3. Search his name." The auditor searched. One thread appeared. Arthur's voice dropped. "Open it." Naomi read the header. "Darnell Price repeated meal access complaint." Caleb's jaw tightened. Naomi read the key line. "Student claims full dining under bridge grant. Local access remains restricted." Mother called again. "Please advise." She paused and looked at the sender. This was from Tom Briggs to Evelyn Grant and Dean Halden. Tom nodded once. "I sent it." Naomi opened the reply from Dean. "Do not escalate. Bridge accounts fall under discretionary dining review. If family calls again, refer them to student services." Caleb's voice broke for the first time. His mother called 6 times. Arthur looked at Dean. You told me those complaints were isolated. Dean leaned back. Arthur, I briefed you based on information provided at the time. By whom? Dean did not answer. Evelyn did. Darnell Price was disruptive. His account had issues. Caleb turned toward her. He stopped eating dinner because of you. Evelyn's lips pressed together. That is not my responsibility. Maya looked at her. You stood behind a counter with food and decided who deserved it. That was your responsibility. No one spoke over that. Naomi moved to the billing spreadsheet. Here is the financial pattern. Darnell Price's meal plan was funded at the full residential rate. Access was restricted locally. North Star billed full eligibility. The unused portion was moved into administrative dining reserve. Arthur asked, how much? The auditor filtered the file. For Darnell Price alone, estimated withheld meal value over one semester, $1,840. Grace whispered. For food? Naomi continued. Across the current 3-year dataset, preliminary variance tied to restricted scholarship accounts is over $400,000. Arthur gripped the back of the chair. Dean said, preliminary numbers are not findings. No, Naomi said. They are trails. Victor looked at the screen. Who benefited from the reserve? The auditor opened another tab. Administrative Dining Reserve funded discretionary dining operations, executive event catering offsets, hospitality overages, and contractor performance bonuses. Maya stared at the words. They denied students dinner and used the money for events? Dean's voice hardened. That is an unfair simplification. Naomi looked at him. Then, make it fair. Explain it. Dean said nothing. Tom spoke quietly. There were trustee luncheons, alumni receptions, donor breakfasts. Sometimes Evelyn would say we had to tighten aid access because the monthly numbers were ugly. Evelyn snapped. That is not what I said. Tom looked at her. You said scholarship kids always complain because they don't understand what things cost. Arthur closed his eyes briefly. Officer Perez stepped toward the table. Counselor, if student funds were knowingly redirected, does this need to go beyond campus review? Naomi answered carefully. Yes. The combination of false accusation, altered access records, deletion attempts, and financial variance should be referred to outside authorities. Dean stood. Absolutely not. We are not making a criminal referral based on an incomplete review. Victor turned to him. You were willing to refer my daughter to police, based on a flag your employee created. Dean froze. Maya looked at the withdrawal agreement again. You needed me to sign before the numbers came out. Dean's voice lowered. Miss Williams, you do not understand what a public scandal can do to a college. I understand what a private lie can do to a student. Arthur looked at Naomi. Preserve everything. Emails, vendor logs, billing files, complaint references. All of it. Naomi nodded. Already in progress. Dean turned to Arthur. You are making a mistake. Arthur's face hardened. No, Robert. I think I am finally looking at one. Evelyn sat down again, but no one had told her she could. Her hands were folded tightly now. She was no longer watching Maya. She was watching the door. At the end of the table, Victor picked up the printed slip that had called his daughter a fraud and placed it beside the billing spreadsheet. One paper had tried to shame a girl in a dining line. The other showed why that shame had been useful. Maya looked at both documents and understood the full shape of it. They had not only judged students by race and poverty, they had found a way to profit from making those students too embarrassed to ask for what was already theirs. Arthur Bell took out his phone and stepped toward the corner of the room. I am calling emergency counsel for the board. Dean Halden moved quickly. Arthur, wait. Arthur stopped, but did not lower the phone. Dean looked around the room, then lowered his voice. We can still contain this. Naomi Reed turned slowly toward him. Contain what, exactly? Dean did not answer her. He looked at Arthur. We can suspend Mrs. Grant pending review. We can restore Miss Williams's account tonight. We can issue a private apology to the family and begin a formal internal audit in the morning. Maya stared at him. A private apology? Dean faced her, his tone softening in a way that made it worse. Miss Williams, I understand you feel wronged. I am prepared to acknowledge that mistakes were made in the handling of your account. Mistakes were made? Grace said from beside the door. She was accused of fraud in front of the entire dining hall. Dean kept his eyes on Maya. I am speaking to Miss Williams. No, Maya said. You are speaking around everyone else. Victor stood beside her. Silent. Dean tried again. Maya, listen to me. You can leave this room tonight with your scholarship intact, your housing secure, and your dining plan restored. Mrs. Grant will be removed from student-facing duties while the college reviews her conduct. No one needs to drag your name through a public investigation. Caleb stepped forward. What about Darnell? Dean's face tightened. Mr. Moore, this is not your meeting. It became our meeting when our names showed up on your screen. Arthur looked at Dean. Robert, stop. But Dean did not stop. He had moved past caution into survival. We are discussing the best path for the college, he said. A public scandal harms everyone. Enrollment, scholarships, donor confidence, student morale. If this is handled irresponsibly, students who had nothing to do with this could suffer. Maya looked at the withdrawal agreement, then at the billing records on the screen. Students already suffered, and we will address that, Dean said quickly, but in a controlled way. Naomi's voice was flat, controlled by the office implicated in the emails. Dean turned on her. Your presence here has escalated a manageable matter. Victor finally spoke. My daughter was not a manageable matter. Dean looked at him. Mr. Williams, with respect, you now have tremendous leverage. Use it wisely. Victor's eyes hardened. Do not mistake restraint for negotiation. Arthur put his phone down on the table but kept his hand on it. Robert, what exactly are you proposing? Dean took a breath. He looked at Maya, then Victor, then Arthur. A written apology tonight. Immediate restoration of Miss Williams's account. Administrative leave for Mrs. Grant. A confidential settlement discussion with the Williams family. A board-supervised review of dining practices. No public statement until we understand the facts. Evelyn lifted her head. Administrative leave? Dean did not look at her. Evelyn, be quiet. That was the first time he had spoken to her without protection in his voice. Maya noticed. Evelyn did too, Naomi asked. And the emails? The deletion attempt? The billing reserve? The students whose accounts were restricted? Dean said. We review them internally. Tom Briggs shook his head. That means bury them again. Dean glared at him. You are still an employee of this college. Tom looked at Arthur. Not if telling the truth costs me my job. Arthur's expression changed. No one in this room will be punished for preserving evidence or giving truthful information. I am saying that. As board chair. Dean stared at him. You do not know what you are promising. Arthur looked back. I know what I should have promised years ago. Maya stepped closer to the table. The red light on the speakerphone was still on. Her voice stayed steady. Dean Halden, you brought me into this room to sign a lie. You told me I could lose my scholarship, my housing, and my future if I refused. You let me believe police might be called because of something your employee changed before I ever touched the scanner. Dean opened his mouth. Maya kept going. Now you want the truth handled quietly because it could embarrass the school. You tried to make me disappear in this room. Now you want the truth to disappear with me. No one interrupted her. Not Victor. Not Naomi. Not Arthur. Evelyn looked away first. Arthur picked up his phone again. Naomi, preserve all active files. Officer Perez, secure the dining services office. Tom, you will remain available as a witness. Grace, Caleb, I am asking you to send your recordings directly to board counsel without posting anything further tonight, if you are willing, Caleb said. As long as it doesn't disappear. Arthur looked him in the eye. It will not. Naomi's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked at Arthur. Local authorities and financial crimes investigators have been notified by board counsel. They are already on campus security's line. Dean stood so abruptly. His chair moved back. Arthur, you had no authority to do that without a full board vote. Arthur answered. I have authority to preserve the institution from ongoing misconduct. Ongoing. I also have a duty to report suspected criminal activity. Evelyn's voice cracked. Criminal? Naomi looked at her. False accusation, alteration of access records, attempted deletion of logs, and potential financial misappropriation tied to student benefits. Yes, Mrs. Grant. Criminal is one possible word. Evelyn shook her head. I followed instructions. Dean turned toward her. Do not say another word. But it was too late. Arthur looked from Evelyn to Dean. Instructions? From whom? Evelyn's face went white. Dean said, This is absurd. She is panicking. Naomi spoke into the room. The record should reflect that Mrs. Grant stated she followed instructions, and Dean Halden immediately directed her not to speak. Dean pointed at the speakerphone. Turn that off. Officer Perez stepped between him and the console. No. The door opened behind her. Two uniformed campus security supervisors entered with a man and woman in plain business attire. The woman introduced herself as an investigator with the local police department's financial crimes unit. The man identified himself as a representative from the county prosecutor's office assigned to institutional fraud referrals. No one raised a voice. No one moved quickly. The room did not need drama. The facts had already done the work. The investigator looked at Arthur. Chair Bell? Arthur nodded. Thank you for coming. Board counsel has transmitted the preliminary evidence packet. She turned to Naomi. We'll need access to the preserved logs, the vendor mirror, and any devices used for the deletion attempt. Naomi said, Chain of custody has begun. We will cooperate. Dean stepped forward. I am the Dean of Administrative Affairs. I object to any seizure of college property without proper process. The investigator looked at him. Then you can make that statement formally. For now, we are asking you and Mrs. Grant to surrender your college-issued devices and accompany us for questioning. Evelyn gripped the chair. I am not going anywhere. I have worked here 21 years. Arthur's voice was cold. Mrs. Grant, effective immediately. You are suspended from all duties pending termination review. Naomi looked at Arthur. Chair Bell, based on the evidence already reviewed, the Williams Equity Trust recommends immediate termination for cause. Arthur nodded. So ordered. Pending final documentation. Evelyn stared at him. You can't do that. Arthur said. I just did. Dean's eyes widened. Arthur, think carefully. I am. Arthur said. Robert Halden, you are relieved of your duties. Effective immediately. Pending formal termination proceedings and external investigation. For the first time all night, Dean had no polished answer. Victor looked at him without satisfaction. You had every chance to tell the truth before power entered the room. The investigator gestured toward the door. Dean Halden, Mrs. Grant. This way. Please. Evelyn looked at Maya one last time. I didn't know who you were. Maya answered before Victor could. You knew enough to decide I didn't belong. Evelyn's face collapsed. Dean and Evelyn walked out with the investigators and campus security. No handcuffs, no struggle. Just the quiet end of authority that had mistaken silence for permission. The hallway was full of students now. Phones were lowered. No one cheered. No one clapped. They only watched as the people who had tried to erase Maya's name walked past them into the night. Arthur turned back to the room. The dining hall closes immediately. North Star's contract is suspended tonight. Every employee on the active shift connected to access changes will be removed from duty, pending investigation. Caleb looked at Maya. Tonight? Arthur nodded. Tonight. Maya sat down for the first time since Naomi had arrived. She was still hungry. She was still tired. But the paper with her name on it no longer controlled the room. Victor stood beside her, quiet again. Naomi gathered the documents. On the table, the withdrawal agreement remained unsigned. By 1:17 a.m., Harrington College sent an emergency notice to every student, parent, faculty member, and staff account on record. The subject line was short: Immediate Dining Services Action. Maya read it on Grace's phone in the lobby of Birch Hall. Her own phone had not stopped buzzing since she left Administrative Affairs. Students had already begun texting clips from the cafeteria. Some asked if she was okay. Some apologized for watching without stepping forward. A few admitted they had been through the same thing and never told anyone. Grace stood beside her in pajama pants and a winter coat thrown over her shoulders. Caleb leaned against the wall near the vending machines, still holding his phone, his face exhausted but awake. Maya read the notice once, then again. Effective immediately, Harrington College had suspended its contract with North Star Dining Services. Evelyn Grant had been terminated for cause. Dean Robert Halden had been relieved of all duties pending external investigation. Every dining employee from the active shift connected to account alterations had been removed from service pending review. All scholarship-linked meal plans would be audited overnight. Any student denied dining access would be provided emergency food service beginning at 7:00 a.m. Grace lowered her voice. They really did it tonight. Caleb nodded. They had to. Too many people saw. Maya looked toward the glass doors of Birch Hall. Outside, campus was quiet. A few students crossed the lawn in hoodies and slippers, whispering in small groups. News traveled differently after midnight. It moved through phones, hallway doors, group chats, and people who could not sleep because the truth had finally named something they had carried alone. Victor stood a few feet away, speaking quietly with Naomi Reed. He had removed his coat, and for the first time that night, Maya noticed how tired he looked. She walked over to him. "Dad." He ended the conversation and turned fully toward her. "You should sleep. You should have told me about the trust." "I know. Why didn't you?" Victor took a moment before answering. "Because you asked me to let you stand on your own name." Maya looked down. "I did." "And you did," he said. "Tonight was not your name failing you. It was people trying to use a system against you." She looked back at him. "Would they have listened if you weren't who you are?" Victor did not lie. "Not that fast." That answer hurt more than comfort would have. He continued, "That is why this cannot end with you being cleared. If justice only shows up after power enters the room, it is not justice. It is damage control." Maya held that sentence quietly. At 7 the next morning, the Harrington Dining Hall reopened under temporary management. Local restaurant workers, community volunteers, and staff from a nearby college arrived with trays of scrambled eggs, oatmeal, toast, fruit, coffee, and boxed lunches. No student had to scan a card. No one was asked to explain a scholarship. No one was sent to the back wall. Arthur Bell stood near the entrance with 2 board members and read a public statement. He did not call it a misunderstanding. He called it a failure of leadership. He announced an independent civil rights and financial investigation, a full audit of student dining accounts, and immediate restoration of all suspended or restricted meal plans. Caleb stood beside Maya while the statement was read. "Darnell needs to hear this." "Call him," Maya said. "I already did." His mother answered first. She cried. Maya closed her eyes for a second. Across the room, Tom Briggs sat with investigators, giving names, dates, shift patterns, and instructions he had kept buried for years. Officer Perez guarded the dining office door while evidence technicians copied local machines. Grace gave her video directly to board counsel, then posted one sentence online after Naomi cleared it. Maya Williams did not commit fraud. The fraud was committed against her. By noon, former students began calling. By evening, the number had passed 20. By the end of the week, Harrington confirmed 58 affected accounts in the preliminary review, most tied to Black, Latino, low-income, or first-generation scholarship students. Darnell Price's mother appeared at campus 2 days later with a folder of ignored emails. She did not shout when she met Arthur Bell. She simply placed the folder on the table and said, "You had my son's name for 2 years. North Star Dining Services lost its contract before the month ended. Its regional director resigned after investigators traced billing adjustments through multiple campuses. Dean Halden and Evelyn Grant were formally charged in connection with false reporting, evidence destruction, discrimination, and misappropriation of student benefit funds. No one at Harrington called it a dining error again. Victor did not withdraw the $25 million commitment. He changed its terms. The Williams Equity Trust would release the money only after Harrington created an independent Office of Student Access and Belonging, placed dining and housing benefits under outside audit, erased every false dining-related disciplinary record, and compensated every student whose funded meals had been denied. Maya asked him why he kept the money there. Victor said, Because walking away punishes the students who still have to eat here. 6 months later, the dining hall looked different, but not because of new paint or new signs. It felt different because students no longer lowered their voices at the front line. A new director greeted people by name. The scanners still existed, but every denied access message now triggered an automatic review by student accounts, not a public accusation from behind the counter. On the wall near the entrance, Harrington had placed a simple line in black letters. No student earns dignity. They arrive with it. Maya stood beneath that sign on a Friday afternoon, waiting for Grace and Caleb. She was no longer the freshman everyone whispered about. She had become the freshman people came to when something felt wrong, and they needed someone to believe them before the paperwork did. A young black student stepped into the line ahead of her, new lanyard around her neck, the tray held close. She hesitated at the scanner. Maya saw it immediately. The girl looked back. "Is this the right line?" Maya picked up a clean tray and handed it to her. "Yes," she said. "This line belongs to you too." The girl smiled, still unsure, but she stayed. Across the room, Victor Williams watched without stepping forward. He did not need anyone to know his name this time. He had already learned that power was not the point. Presence was. Maya moved through the line with the new student, past the hot food, past the salad bar, past the place where her tray had once hit the floor. She did not look down. That was the quiet victory. Not that Evelyn Grant had been removed. Not that Dean Halden had lost his office. Not that the cameras, emails, and records had finally told the truth. The victory was a 19-year-old girl standing in the same room that had tried to erase her, holding a tray without asking permission. The lesson from Maya's story is simple, but it is not small. Dignity should never depend on wealth, status, race, or who is standing beside you. Injustice often survives because people stay quiet, because someone says, "It is not my business," or "That is just how the system works." But one voice, one witness, one person willing to tell the truth can change the entire room. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If the way this story was told touched you, or if you think there is something we can improve in the storytelling, please leave your honest thoughts and suggestions. And if you have a powerful true story, a meaningful life lesson, or an experience about justice, kindness, betrayal, or courage, please share it with our channel. Your story might be the one that helps someone else feel seen, heard, and strong enough to speak up. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.